How many bodies need to appear before someone realizes they were looking in the wrong place? This question, asked by a man arrested 2 years ago for a single murder, became the center of an investigation that should never have been closed. The confession came where no one expected it, inside the jail, recorded on a silent recording, sent anonymously to the prosecutor's office with just one handwritten phrase: "Review the case." The video, which lasts just a few minutes, shows Raymond Ellis sitting in the cell. He doesn't blink, don't shake. It just says, "You focused on the wrong body." What seemed like a resolved confession, in fact, was just the beginning of something more dense, a real disturbing case, with layers hidden behind silences, disappearances, and details that justice ignored. There was no anger in his voice, just logic, the kind of logic that doesn't go away with proof. Watch this video until the end, and you will get goosebumps, because what you are about to discover now may surprise you. Raymond never wanted to hide the body. He wanted it to be found, but only that one. The rest was saved. Raymond Ellis didn't attract attention. And that was the plan. A technical employee at a deactivated psychiatric hospital, he lived between night shifts, empty corridors, and old cameras. His record was clean. No history of aggression, no documented psychiatric disorder, no behavioral crisis. But archives forget the essential thing: time. And Raymond used every second methodically. He lived alone in a remote trailer, with no neighbors nearby, no noise. The only constant sound was the hum of the industrial freezer he installed himself, telling the few onlookers that he sold frozen exotic meat online. Never showed the products. I never had any customers. His routine was organized with clinical precision. Timed meals, fixed paths, nightly rituals that included reviewing VHS tapes recorded from the old security systems he repaired himself. But what seemed obsessive was training. He didn't control the environment. He simulated, calculated behaviors, observed deviations. The only thing that varied were the eyes. When I looked at someone, it wasn't presence. It was analysis, as if testing an invisible thesis. He was not violent, not impulsive. The impulse lived in those who try to hide the error. Raymond, it documented the error in silence. Because for him, crime was just the final consequence of a well-resolved equation. Madeline. Connor worked as a night cashier at a 24-hour grocery store in downtown Rutland, Vermont. She was 27, had no online presence, and no active family. She shared a small apartment with a co-worker, but they barely spoke to each other. Her routine was a silent cycle. She came in at 10 p.m., left at 6 a.m., walked 3 blocks to the bus stop, listened to the same 3 songs, bought the same coffee. For Raymond, Madeline was not an emotional target. It was a pattern study. He watched her for 29 days. And without her noticing, street cameras, reflections from shop windows, silent tracking from the cell phone he cloned from a casual bump on the bus. Her every step was predictable, and that predictability, for Raymond, meant only one thing: zero margin for error. She didn't have a boyfriend. She didn't call anyone when she left work. She never changed her route. She didn't look up. She didn't notice the cars that stopped. What sealed his fate was not a failure. It was consistency. Raymond wrote in his notebook: structural support, minimal. Absence notification, low. Social impact, nil. He didn't choose Madeline out of desire. He chose her because no one else would. The former B block of Rutland State Hospital had been closed since 2008. After allegations of neglect and patient deaths, the area was sealed off but never completely shut down. Raymond knew this because he had worked there, and because he had asked, quietly, to be the technical manager of the electrical system in that wing. Small request, buried among maintenance sheets that no one reviewed. For 9 months he restored the environment with a surgeon's precision. There was no rush. Every wiring was redone, every outlet tested. He brought a portable generator and adapted one of the offices into what he called an observation room. The walls were covered with acoustic panels reused from an abandoned theater. On the ceiling, a projector from 1996, still functional, positioned millimetrically to record without shadows. On the floor, a wooden chair, the kind used in psychiatric containment, which he restored, cleaned and fixed to the cement with industrial screws. The windows were sealed with hospital-grade silicone, controlled humidity, constant temperature. Raymond cleaned the room with hydrogen peroxide and even wore gloves when installing the light wires. He left no fingerprints, not even dust. It was more than captivity. It was a behavioral laboratory, a stage set not for violence, but for observation. On the door he hung a single tag, Session 03. The night of April 12th began like any other. Madeline checked in at 9:59 p.m., bought her usual energy drink at midnight, and responded to an automated message from her bank at 2:13 a.m. After that, the world stopped registering her existence. Raymond appeared at the market at 03:04. He was wearing the maintenance uniform he wore at the hospital, carrying a bag with a gallon of water and a broken flashlight. He approached the cashier with silent steps, as if he didn't want to get in the way. The market security camera, the only one facing the corridor, had been turned off 2 days earlier. According to the technical report, cabling problems, instability that he himself caused. He dropped his wallet on the floor. When Madeline bent down to help, he inserted the syringe under her left collarbone with an ultrafine needle prepared with a compound of etomidate and midazolam. She tried to get up, but her knees gave out. Within seconds, he held her firmly and spoke softly, almost affectionately. "It's okay, just fainting, it will pass." He left with her in his arms through the back. The car was already parked in the side alley, doors unlocked, license plates cloned. From the first touch until the vehicle started, exactly 89 seconds passed. No witnesses, no resistance, because the plan never included luck. It included calculation. She woke up with a damp neck and numb wrists. The chair was sturdy, bolted to the floor. It took her eyes a few seconds to adjust to the dim light that hung from the ceiling, slowly swinging like a pendulum. The loudest sound was her own heart beating, and her footsteps, slow, controlled, not urgent. Raymond appeared before her with a notebook in his hands and a neutral expression. There was no anger, no pleasure. He simply began to write down notes, as if he were correcting a test. The first sentence he said was dry. Unpredictability resistance test. Level, human. She tried to scream. He just turned his face and wrote down, expected reaction. For the next 91 minutes, she was subjected to a sequence of alternating sensory stimuli, light, sound, words, smells, all interspersed with long silences. The goal was not pain, it was observation. She heard distorted recordings, whispered voices, heart monitor noises. When he tried to get up, the belts tightened with a hidden latch. The second compound was injected directly into the jugular vein, pancuronium, a neuromuscular blocker. The body froze before the scream. The eyes remained open. Raymond bent down and said, "Your vital signs are still stable. That's great." She died with full consciousness, unable to move, unable to escape, just existing until the end. Raymond didn't cover any tracks. He selected them. As soon as Madeline's heartbeat stopped, he began the post-occurrence protocol, written by himself in a black-covered notebook labeled Session 03, Final Procedures. The body was repositioned with surgical care, head erect, hands overlapping on the lap, eyes closed with light digital pressure. He wiped off every drop of secretion with sterile gauze. He changed her clothes into an unmarked hospital gown, fitted to her body like a showpiece. He removed the belts from the chair and stored them in a false compartment behind the wall. The floor, covered in vinyl plastic, was folded to the millimeter and sealed in a steel drum with diluted acid. The syringes were disassembled, separated by type of material, and discarded in different locations around the city, a trick he had already tested in previous simulations. The vials of chemical compounds were incinerated in a portable oven in the trailer itself. The camera on the ceiling was paused at exactly 4:57. Raymond removed the memory card and replaced it with an empty one. The room, previously a space of death, now seemed like a clean, disinfected room without noise. no signals. But he left out one. Detail. On the wall, stuck with black tape, is an old newspaper clipping with a phrase highlighted in red. Patient disappears after overnight transfer. The year, 2008. The origin, the same hospital. The signature, none. Madeleine was not buried. She was stored. Inside Raymond's trailer, there was a compartment beneath the floorboards that was insulated and humidity controlled. The space, originally used to store tools, had been converted into a clinically accurate burial container. Here, her body was placed in the fetal position, wrapped in a pale blue surgical sheet and sealed with stainless steel clamps. Next to it, he placed 3 objects: a rusty ring, a hospital label with an illegible date, and a VHS tape. The label marked Patient 12. The tape had no label, just the word instructions and scrawled in red marker. For the next 19 days, Raymond visited the compartment every morning, recording the temperature, humidity, and tissue integrity. He wrote everything down. He behaved like a museum curator, as if the body were a rare artifact, not evidence of murder. On the 20th day, he removed Madeleine from there. He placed it in the trunk with absolute coolness. He drove to the abandoned lot of an old feed mill, now overgrown with weeds and rust. He dug a shallow grave, measured the angle of the shadow, and deposited the body with the care of someone hiding a seed. But before covering it, he left something. Next to her head, he placed a laminated envelope containing 3 photographs. One was Madeleine's. The other 2, no one knew who they were yet. The body was only discovered by chance. A group of teenagers were exploring the area of the old factory while filming for their urban video channel. Among the ruins, the muffled metallic smell drew them to a spot where the ground seemed slightly disturbed. One of them kicked something hard. It was the edge of a plastic sheet. When the police arrived, Madeleine's body was in an advanced state of preservation. Thanks to the technical preparation of the scene, the position of the body, the objects next to it, and the absence of visible violence confused the experts. There were no signs of a struggle, nor of haste. The scene looked more like a setup than a crime. The photos found in the envelope raised more questions than answers. The first matched Madeleine, confirmed by facial recognition. The other 2 showed women indoors, sitting, looking out of frame. None matched records of missing people. None had identification. The strangest thing was on the back. Each photo had an inscription with reversed numbers, 04, 01, and 03. As if there was a sequel, but there was a missing piece. Days later, the teenagers' channel published excerpts of the discovery. The video went viral, and among the comments an anonymous profile posted, "You found the 3rd one, but the 2nd one is still waiting." The IP, untraceable. The bill, deleted in minutes. The case, reopened. But it was too late. Raymond knew that now. They were playing his game. When the agents knocked on the door of Raymond Ellis's trailer, he was ready. He was sitting at his desk with a cup of still warm coffee next to a manila envelope sealed with black tape. He showed no surprise, no resistance. He simply extended his hand and said, "You're ahead of schedule, but not ahead of schedule." During the drive to the police station, Raymond remained completely silent. He looked out the window like someone reviewing an already rehearsed script. The police officers escorting him reported a total lack of reaction, neither denial nor remorse, just acceptance, or something closer to supervision. The envelope found on the table was turned over to the prosecutor. Inside was a 3-page handwritten letter, a map of the city with 3 dots marked in red, and a sentence written in capital letters. None of these people were chosen. They were selected. During the interrogation, Raymond refused to talk for the first 72 hours. On the 3rd day, he asked for paper, pen, and a tape recorder. When asked if he intended to confess, he simply replied, "I'm not here to explain. I'm here to confirm." The prosecution believed they had closed the case with the arrest, but Raymond did not react like a captured murderer. He reacted like an author following the criticism of his work. And in that moment, he knew. They were still trapped on the surface. The rest of the story, he would insist on leading. On the 4th, day, Raymond finally asked to speak. The interrogation room was cold, silent, with 2 recorders on and 3 agents present. He entered in handcuffs, but walked with the calm of someone about to give a lecture, not a confession. He sat down, adjusted his posture, and without anyone asking, began to speak. There was no hesitation, no effort to dramatize. The words came as if they were memorized, but not in the theatrical sense, in the technical sense. He detailed the kidnapping, the composition of the substances used, the exact duration of each phase of paralysis, and the phrases he chose to say, all with such chilling precision that one of the agents left the room before the end. Madeleine was third, he said. The first was catalogued in 2016, the second in 2018. Madeleine was the final piece of the first trilogy. Investigators tried to press for names, locations, dates. Raymond just smiled. You don't want to know who. You want to know if. And I'm saying yes. What you saw is real. But it's incomplete. Then he paused for a long time, as if waiting for someone to understand what was coming next. You focused on the wrong body because it was ready to be found. The others weren't. The recording ends with Raymond looking at the camera and whispering something almost inaudible. By amplifying the sound, experts were able to decipher a single sentence. The body reveals, but it is the interval that explains. And in that moment, everything that seemed certain became doubts. Again. For weeks, analysts tried to decipher what Raymond meant by the gap that explains. They combed through maps, reviewed his hospital shifts, cross-referenced camera schedules, but no timeline seemed to add up. It was only when they revisited the material in the envelope that something emerged. Not in the photos, not in the words, but in the gaps. Between the first photo and the second, 2 years. Between the second and the third, 2 years. Between the arrest and the recording of the confession, 2 years. Raymond did not choose dates at random. He marked cycles, as if each crime were part of a mathematical sequence, a formula that only made sense when you looked at what was absent, what wasn't said, what wasn't shown. Investigators discovered that the name Session 03 found in the hospital room was not the end. It was just the phase marker, and the VHS tape recovered from the trailer did not show Madeleine. It showed a blackboard. On it, 3 names written in white, chalk, and below a 4th name, still erased. Raymond had made it clear the discovered bodies were not the climax. They were the introduction. The real purpose was never the act. It was the reaction, the failure to realize, the speed with which the system archived. He didn't kill for fetish, he killed for thesis. How many corpses does the world have to ignore before it understands that the pattern exists? Was written on the back cover of the black notebook found in the false bottom of his closet. On the last page, a single line, 04 is already under observation. And with that, the police finally understood. The next body was not the next. It was already somewhere, waiting. The final video arrived 7 months after the confession. It was delivered in an envelope with no return address, left at the prosecutor's office reception at 2:37 in the morning. No camera recorded the moment of delivery. No fingerprints, no clues. Just the same handwriting on the outside. Session 04. Inside, a black and white recording. The shaky image shows a dimly lit room, a chair identical to the one used in the previous sessions, and a female silhouette in the background, motionless, staring at the ceiling. There is no sound. There is no date. But in the corner of the screen, a timer counting down. When it reaches 0:00, the screen goes black. A sentence appears in white letters. You thought I was talking about a body, but there were 3.5. The tape ends with a key, high-pitched, almost imperceptible noise. By amplifying, forensic technicians discovered a hidden spectrogram in the sound frequency. The pattern reveals geographic coordinates, an open field in rural New Hampshire. When they got there, officers did not find a body. They found a chair, a VHS tape, and a notebook with torn-out pages. Raymond Ellis died in his cell 3 weeks earlier. Cause, hanging with a sheet. But the report revealed something disturbing. On the cloth used for the hanging, there was an inscription made in dried blood. "You only found what I left. What seemed like the end was just preparation. Because if there are 4 sessions, how many are still left to be revealed?" If this made you look twice in the dark, leave a like. Comment here. The Interval explains. And subscribe. In the next episode, the recording found inside a sealed cabinet 11 years ago will reveal who was watching everything before everyone else.